Hello and welcome to Journey Lines, the show answering the question, how did they get there? I'm your host, Kim Minnick. Each episode, I invite a guest to complete a reflective exercise, plotting key moments of their life and career against a line of neutrality. Together, we explore the ups, downs, and everything in between on their journey. I am so pumped to welcome today's guest, David Smith. David, how are you?
I am great, thanks, dude. I'm so excited to be here. This is very fun.
Thank you so much for joining. David and I met a few years ago, and he gave me a sneak peek of his story over July 4th. So I begged and pleaded. So thankful that you're joining us. And the first question, as always, what's taking up your time these days, personally, professionally, holistically?
Oh, wow. Let's start with personally. My parents came to visit here in California for the last 6 weeks. They're from Australia. That's where I grew up. And when you're traveling that far from Australia, they like to make the most of it. So
Of
a 6 week
course.
visit it was. They're staying with me here in the house, and we just have been having a fantastic time. I just took the airport last night, so now I got a little bit of downtime to
I mean, always
do
nice to say
it.
goodbye. Love them deeply. Love to see them
Yeah.
here. Don't mind
I
when
would
they
also
leave.
friends. I'm missing them already.
I'm a
Um,
huge fan of your mom. In case she listens, Mom, I miss you.
I
Come back
expect she
soon.
will listen. I'm
Amazing.
yeah. And I professionally work, has been keeping me busy. I work for Microsoft in developer relations, leading a team of people that do artificial intelligence. And as you can imagine, for the last 2 years, that has been a crazy, crazy time. So that has been keeping me super busy.
I mean, definitely a big topic for folks who don't know what is developer relations, like a high level overview.
That's a really good question. A lot of people think it's just like standing up on stage and going on long trips and doing fancy meals and stuff like that. It's not like that at all.
And Twitter.
That
Lots
Twitter,
of
it
Twitter.
used to be Twitter. Twitter these days is not such a big thing.
X.
That's a whole other topic. But the way I like to explain it is we are advocates for a specific community. And in my particular case, it's the community of artificial intelligence engineers. We obviously advocate for Microsoft to that community, telling AI engineers, why Microsoft is a cool place to be working with AI and why Microsoft has a great platform for building applications with AI. That's the visible side of the job. That's the bit that people associate with the travel and the conferences. But actually, most of the job is in the other direction. We are advocates for, in our case, the AI engineer community within Microsoft. So we help product teams at Microsoft understand better how to build their products so people can use them more effectively and ideally fall in love with them. We work with marketing teams to help with their messaging and communications. We work with all sorts of groups at Microsoft. We're not in marketing, we're not in sales. We're actually very closely tied with the engineering team because we are developers that talk to developers.
Amazing. So you help influence the product, influence the direction, and really kind of like bridge the gap between users and company. I love that.
Exactly. I try to avoid that influencer term because it's kind of a bit negative. Like we're influencers, but ultimately, yes. That was a job. We kind of
Well,
influence hearts and minds.
not influencer, just
Yeah.
a part of it. No, I get it. I get it. Well, I am so excited to dive into your journey line today. If I may, it looks like we start back in 1991, a little bit above the line of neutrality. For those who are listening, you can check out David's journey line in the comments below. But I see you decided to choose computer science over statistics. Kick us
Is that right?
off.
Well, there,
Where
because
are
it's
we
actually the
at?
other way around. I chose statistics over computer
Oh,
science.
so no, I just can't read. That's what it is. You chose statistics over computer science.
Yeah.
Start us off. Kick us off. Where are we? Time, space,
Yeah,
all the
so
good
I went
stuff.
to school in Australia, a little town called Adelaide. There's only two universities there. I went to the one and I started up doing mathematics and French and physics as you do when you're not sure what you're doing as an undergrad.
Mathematics and French and
Yes,
physics,
exactly.
as you do.
Not yes,
Right.
maths. Yeah. That's what's nice about university in Australia. You get to pick and choose and kind of figure out your way as you go along. You don't have to choose a major. But in American sense, I probably ended up with a double major of computer science
Okay.
and statistics. Computer science and mathematics by the time I finished my undergraduate degree. And the logical choice at that point would have been to go into computer science because at that time, it's like in the early 90s, computers were super hot. programmer was the hot new career, everything like that. But it just turned out I really loved math, and
No maths. I
particularly
like
statistics.
maths.
Yeah, right. Having especially when my mum in Australia for the last 6 weeks, so I'm taking maths again. The American level, I did math. And one of the subjects I really, really liked was statistics. And at the summer, at the end of my undergraduate degree, I actually did an internship at CSIRO, the Australian equivalent of NIST, like the government science organization.
Okay, cool.
And just really loved working with data and solving problems with numbers. And actually, mathematics is a bit esoteric, but statistics is applied to real world problems. I worked on solving the problem of making the rollers that make aluminum foil smoother so that they could, make better aluminum foil.
Who knew that was a problem that needed to be
Exactly,
solved?
they did know that thing. So I fell in love with it then and decided to do my, what would you call a master's degree in statistics. And that's kind of where my career kicked off.
Ah, so cool. And what did you do with that career? Where did you go from there?
I went to France.
Okay,
I
of
was,
course.
I was really young when I finished my master's. Like I finished my undergrad. Well, I finished high school at 15, so I finished my undergrad at 18.
Okay.
So I finished my
Okay.
master's honors year, they call it in Australia, at 18. And
Oh, wow.
so I could have gone straight into the workforce at that point. So I actually had some options. Like I got an invitation to move to Antarctica and work for the British Antarctic Survey and stuff like that. But I decided I was too young to start work at that age. And
Okay.
also, I am studying French at university, as I mentioned, and I never got a chance to speak it. I don't know why they teach people French in Australia because there's no French
Not
people.
super popular over there?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
took French in high school and
Yeah.
didn't use
Yeah.
a lick of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did like the language. I didn't complete all the way through university. I dropped it for math stuff, but always wanted to speak it. So I decided to spend the year backpacking. So early on, up to my 19th birthday, I got on a plane to London, as it turned out, because I had some family connections there, with my backpack and little else, a one-way ticket, and ended up spending 2 years backpacking around Europe.
2 years.
Yeah.
Firstly, did you get to make use of your French?
I did, yeah. I spent about 6 months in France and had a fantastic time. It was just, honestly, it was just such a great experience. I think, even more than the choice of career, that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, was to go traveling. You don't realize how much your worldview is centered on just where you grew up and the things you experienced there. And, until you travel, you realize, oh, that thing I thought was unique at home is actually like really common. And vice versa, that thing I thought was just standard, that is, nobody else in the world has that. And you don't get that perspective without traveling. So that was one of the best things I ever did.
Do you have any of those points, those like juxtapositions that really stick out, or things that like kind of still impact you or stick with you today?
I don't know. I think, especially on
No.
the French side, just
Mm,
being in a country where your language is not the default, like that gave me a lot of perspective. And especially early on, even though I'd spent 6 years at school learning how to speak French, I landed there and I could understand nobody. Nobody can understand me,
yeah.
that's for sure. I could read fairly well. That was really the only thing that got
Mhm.
me by. But like having to present myself and live through my life with this struggle in communication was eye-opening. I think that
Yeah.
really gave me vision was how the immigrants are perceived in ways that kind of innate. I mean that in the sense that I had a friend that lived in Paris, Australian. I used to travel to Paris every night. I lived about half an hour away by train, and I used to come visit my friend Jenny. And she was an au pair. And so
Okay.
she had little kids, And I remember one time I was chatting as best I could with this kid, so we're obviously French. And at one point, this
Yeah.
little girl says to me, "Why do you speak like a baby?" And
Oh
I was,
no.
I just like, it just was a sudden clarity of like, oh my God, this is how everybody sees me. Like, they think I sound stupid or like a child or something, but it's just that I don't know how to communicate with you in the right way.
Yeah.
And that kind of flip of perspective for me was just like really, really enlightening. And, it gave me, I am an immigrant. I am an immigrant here in the US, I'm not a typical immigrant, when
Common
when politicians
language.
talk about the immigrants, like they're not talking about white guys like me. But
No,
that being said, I
you
do
are.
appreciate how immigrants are perceived in a way that is almost always completely unfair.
Strong agree. And it's funny you mentioned talk like a baby. I've been desperately trying to learn Spanish, and I try and talk with small children when I find them, because that's my level of Spanish.
Yeah.
And that's the intelligence that I project in Spanish. And I have good friends who English is their second language, and they often say I'm smarter in my home language, and I'm like, you're just as smart. Our language is just tough. So
Yeah.
I so appreciate that perspective. And it seems like this was really like kind of a high point on your journey. Really enjoyed your time
Absolutely. I mean, it
abroad.
was a great way to experience something different, and it also really taught me to be independent. You
Yeah.
live as a child or teenager, and you've got your friends and your family and your whole societal infrastructure around you, and then suddenly having to figure out, like, where am I going to get my next meal, and where am I going to be sleeping tonight, all those kinds of things is it's a good life lesson. When kids come up and ask me, what should I do in my career, I always recommend that, like, take some time to travel. I'll get your perspective to anywhere else.
What a good recommendation. Did you find like a gap year or a travel year was common in Australia? Because I don't think it's super common in the US.
It's quite common for those Australians that do travel. Like if you're an Australian, you're going to take that time to travel. You're going to travel overseas most likely, and you're going to take a long time. 3 months absolute minimum. A lot of people aim, for a year in the beginning. And, when I was doing that kind of thing, I came across a lot of other travelers my age from other countries. But typically, they only do it for like a few weeks, the summer or whatever. And I recommend to people to try the long gap year, because, that's kind of what really, you can't just do 6 months on your savings accounts, but you've got to kind of find a way to survive. I found that valuable.
I love that advice. Well, the travel and the good times and the carefree life doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And I see you settle in to the UK and start your PhD. Not quite as high as traveling around and backpacking,
Yeah.
but settled in. What's going on?
Yeah, no, sorry. This was, I spent a lot of time traveling, but I met some people in Lancaster University in the north of Lancaster through my connections through statistics. It's a big school for statistics. I went there because I had some connections through my university, and ultimately a job offer came up to be a research assistant there at Lancaster University. So that gave me some money to keep on working even before I finished traveling. So I spent a couple of months working, and then go traveling for another couple of months and coming back and forth. And ultimately that transitioned into a PhD program. So full-time employee, so that gave me an income as I was living there, but also studying for a PhD in statistics. And that was my first time, living permanently in a foreign country. Had a great network of friends there. Loved the lifestyle, loved the people, and loved the weather. Really enjoyed my time there. It's like a small country town with a big university attached to us. Good mix of sea and country, and I loved it.
Yeah, in America we would call those college towns, and they're fantastic. How long were you there? I see this is kind of like on the edge before a little bit of a dip down. So tell me a little bit more about your UK PhD and the slide that happens.
Probably 6-7 years in total. I did a few years of working back and forth and traveling, when I came back and started the PhD program. I fell in love for the first time there. Came out.
First
I
love.
lived in college town, all that kind of stuff.
Wild.
Met my first sort of the long-term boyfriend there, and that went on for a few years. It was great, but as these things do, eventually kind of fizzled out, and we broke up, and then I was like trying to figure out what to do next in my life. Also, at the same time, I started getting job offers. Through my work, I started with a bit of a public persona blogging and speaking and those kinds of things. I wrote some software that particular biostaticians in certain pharmaceutical companies were well aware of, and maybe you also never heard of. But I eventually got a job with a software company that specialized in the software that I was using. It's called S. And they basically get you job offer to your tech support agent. But then after that meant moving to London.
Okay.
Still at the time, like I continued doing the PhD, in my spare time. But it's 40 years, 30 years later now. I haven't finished it. I don't think everyone else.
No, it just didn't quite. Still in your spare time, though. You just need more spare time. That's all it is.
And everything associated with it. It's definitely not.
Look, I don't know. If you ever want to get a job, you might need that PhD.
Yeah. Well, that was that's why I kind of moved that, up the scale, because if all that hadn't happened, I probably would still be in the UK or maybe some other university in the world. I'd still be in the academic system. I would never have gotten into the career I am now had that not happened, had I not sort of got out of academia. I think I could have had a successful career in academia. I probably would have enjoyed it, but I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as, the path my life did take.
Amazing. So the life takes you on. Of course, my chief happiness officer in the background is shaking and scratching himself. So your first boyfriend, you came out, and your first boyfriend was a long-term boyfriend.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Did you get to explore more and have more fun while you were in London?
I did. Well, yes and no. It was a weird.
No need to.
Yeah. I mean, definitely on answers, yes. I mean, London certainly had more of a scene than Lancaster did. Got to go to the clubs and all that kind of stuff. Well, that was never my thing.
I would love to see you in a club.
It was good, but I wasn't a huge fan of London as a city. I lived kind of in the outskirts. It was a long travel to going to the center, with friends and things like that. So when I got the opportunity a couple of years later to take a promotion that involved moving to Seattle, I jumped on it. I'd never really considered living in the United States. It was never a goal of mine. But through work, I'd been to Seattle a couple of times. I just loved it as a city.
Really?
I was tired of London, so I took the leap and moved to the United States in early 2000 for this job.
And started an upswing. Welcome to the U.S. About what, early 2000s you said?
Yeah, I think at 2000, I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what was Seattle like? What was the promotion like? How is that new chapter of your life?
Well, I mean, certainly culture shock again. Very different country. Took a lot of getting used to, but it was exciting because, I mean, oddly enough, I felt Seattle felt like a more European city than London did, in the sense of, it was smaller and, I lived in a neighborhood and I could walk around places and things like that. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. Fell in with, a great social network here very quickly. But here in the States, I live in California now, but up in Seattle. Funnily enough, when I got my first apartment, it was pretty close to downtown Seattle. And just down the street was a bar, a gay bar. And so I just started hanging out there because that was, honestly, my local.
Sure.
But, I met some really fun people there. It's still short-term worker and stuff like that. But the really cool thing was I got introduced to rugby through this bar. There was John Cook, his name was my rugby coach for a few years. He's since passed away. But he convinced me that I should play rugby simply because I was Australian. I'd never played rugby in my life.
Of course.
He was saying, "You're Australian, you must know how to play it." And I was like, okay, well, I was up for anything in that point, and to join the rugby team. And made a break out with my friends that had fantastic time. And ultimately met my husband Dane through that process.
Oh my gosh. Well, first off, how are you as a rugby player? How was being on a rugby team? Are you okay?
I was surprisingly good. I had never played a real physical contact sport like that before. I did play Aussie rules as a child, which is contact-ish, but I was 7 or 8 at the time. I remember very little of it. I played volleyball. A little bit of soccer, but rugby was completely alien. But I loved it. It was just, especially at that age when you got a lot of energy and nothing to take you down. I mean, I
Yeah.
get a lot of immersion. Get a lot of people really hot. It turns out to be really, really fun. So I enjoyed
It
that
does
part
look
of it.
like a physical sport, I must
It is a
say.
musical quote, yeah. It was a gay rugby team that I was playing with, the Seattle Quake. This was in the
Cool.
very early years of gay rugby teams. And it was also kind of an honor because we got to play in the inaugural Bingham Cup. Mark Bingham, you might know that name, the guy from United 93 that took down the terrorists on the plane.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Was a rugby
yeah.
player in San Francisco for the San Francisco Fog. And after he was killed, his mother put together a tournament of gay rugby teams for the Bingham Cup. And I played in that for the first
Wow.
couple of years, and it's a tournament that's still on to this day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Such a cool story. Gosh, and then how was work during this time? You had just gotten a promotion.
Yeah,
Uh,
work was great
work
because
was in the background, maybe.
I progressed from being like a tech support engineer to just kind of helping
Sure.
individual people solve their problems. And I think through that process, I had given a lot of feedback back to the product team about like, if this was James, then I wouldn't be having all these support questions, all that kind of stuff. So eventually they
Okay.
brought me onto a product management role and brought me
Cool.
over to Seattle to that to lead one of the minor products, and I'm actually out through the rings to lead the whole product management exercise there for that company, and that was a great experience. I mean, first of all, just learning to work directly with customers on product management as opposed to through individual one-on-one service thing, but more proactively, doing research with customers, finding out, if we did this, how would this change your use of our product to choose more or less, and that kind of stuff, and then bring that feedback to the product team so that they can improve the product and just keep on going through that cycle. I got to introduce a whole new product line, like taking it from the desktop to the server and doing more of the B2B type of side of the business, working with whole companies installing platforms as opposed to individuals using products. Learned to learn a team there, like put people under me, and did my first management role and had hours in that as well, and helping people help me succeed and helping them succeed. So that was just a great experience. It definitely got me to where I am today.
Amazing. And you just continue this upswing. You had mentioned, and I cut you off, but you mentioned you met your husband. And at the very, very high was Sparkles and Smiles, married to Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, well, that was incredible. Like, I met Jay. Well, it wasn't exactly through rugby. Like, we had met through an online dating thing, the very early days of online dating.
Nice.
With the stranger. See, I was indeed.
Yeah, never meet strangers on the internet, but here's a dating site.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we had our first date and hit it off. But shortly after that, after our first date, I had to go to a rugby tournament for a while. And then while I was away, that same coach met up with Jay and said, you should play rugby too. So he joined the rugby team while I was away, and we played rugby together for several years. But I don't know, like, I have to explain when you just kind of know that you've met the right person. It's like, Jay and I were very, very unlike as people. Like, we had, very different backgrounds. He was from the States. I was from Australia. He was more from the arty literature side of things. I was maths and science and computer side of things. He had a job in branding. I had a job in software. But also, we kind of figured out over time that we were also really alike in lots of ways. Even professionally, like our jobs ultimately involved advocacy. He was doing public relations and I was advocating to technical communities, and it turned out we had a lot of common in that. Getting get ahead of myself, but for a lot of, especially in the last 10 years or so, we worked together in the same house a lot. So I overheard him sort of doing his meetings just like I'm doing now. And I learned a lot from him about, how to manage people and how to negotiate with people and things like that. Anyway, so I was like, all right, so we met, and we're like, and then this is back in 2004. We mentioned this very strange period legally, because this is all the time of marriage rights. But we had a domestic partnership registered in Seattle, and then we moved to California, and that was recognized there. We bought our first house together, our second house together, actually, when we moved from Seattle. And that becomes important because whether you were married or not made a big difference to the mortgage. But we were registered domestic partners, and that counted in California, but then property happened in California, and then we weren't domestic partners anymore, and then we got married in Vancouver, BC, when Canada made it legal, and then America didn't. It was all very, very complicated for a long time. For several years, people would ask us the question, are you married? And we'd say, well, it kind of depends which jurisdiction you're in, and we're waiting on a Supreme Court decision about this thing. But
and like just hearing you talk about it in buying a home, right? Like, I don't know if a lot of people realize, like, it's actually more than just a piece of paper. It enables a lot of things. So having to figure out your jurisdiction to figure out if you're married or not, it's awful, gross, terrible.
Exactly. Yeah. But best thing I ever did was getting married to Jay.
Of course. And you moved to California, and best thing, can't top it. But we do move on to a Revolutions blog. Tell me about that.
This is after I worked at that software company for a while. I went to the startup scene for a bit. I got recruited to join a startup. It's called Revolution Computing at the time, which was in the open source sector. So they were doing an open source version of the software that I used to work for before. So that was a leap. So moving from a company that was listed on the NASDAQ to this tiny startup, which I think we had
may or may not be profitable.
Exactly, yeah. But the work was incredible. My job sort of changed various times over the year. But ultimately, what we had to do as a company and what I had to do as a person was build a market for this software products, which was number one, free or available free because it's based on open source software. I need to convince companies who ultimately are going to be paying for this software that's going to be beneficial to them and all the problems associated with it. And it was really an awareness problem that I had to solve, was because any individual who wanted to use that software, we love this, we pick up and install it, and so on, it's great. But then you have to go to the company side and say, well, is this something you want to pay for? Justifying all that. But there's kind of two ways to go about that. One is you can sort of make a big case to the businesses about benefits and value and all that kind of stuff. We decided to take a little bit of different routes and go from the bottom up and work directly from the developers.
I love
statisticians. Data science was a new concept at this time. It was just becoming popular. And I, with several other people, did all I could to make data science as a concept a popular and valuable concept. Because most of the people at that time...
we owe data science to you?
Not to me. Drew Conway, a friend of mine, was actually kind of one of the primary people that started this. You ever seen the data science Venn diagram? He was the one that came up with that. But we all worked to kind of popularize this as a term because we knew that the people that were doing these deep analyses in the back offices of companies and writing these reports that determined whether like a new, financial hedge fund got created or whether a new drug got approved. They were doing all this critical work, but it was very much seen as a back office type, give it to the smart people and wait 6 months kind of a process. What we wanted to do was to make companies recognize that the people that are doing this type of work with the data analysts, the data scientists, they were critical to what businesses do. Businesses that weren't doing this kind of analysis and, importantly, employing these kinds of people were missing out. So our strategy, which I think some of this is, in retrospect, it was a strategy. Probably at the time, it was just all we're doing stuff, but it turned
a little luck, a little strategy, a little preparation.
But I'll say that our strategy was to make data science a valuable role in companies, as opposed to trying to sell our software specifically for data science.
Hell
And
yeah.
that works. Data science was the cool job. It was the number one job for several years, right? Um, University started running courses with that title, data science, as opposed to
Yeah.
statistics. A lot of people got into the business, and it was a really, really great time. And it was successful in terms of because we popularized that concept, data science. Our software amongst that community was already associated with data science, and then businesses kind of just came along for the ride.
Yeah. And it sounds like it was doing so well, it got acquired. Am I skipping ahead too
Yeah.
fast?
Ultimately, the company was acquired by Microsoft. When was it? Back in 2009 or so, I think.
Okay.
Yes. And again, another interesting life choice. It was like, do I jump ship and go with this big company? I did not have a good opinion of Microsoft at that time.
I
Definitely
think that's
changed
fair.
since
I
then.
think around that time, most
Yeah,
people
I mean,
thought
Microsoft was out of the
Microsoft was
evil empire.
antiquated,
Yeah, and
Hotmail,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And especially coming from an open source background, Microsoft was
Mhm.
seen as the antithesis of open source. But through the
Yeah.
process of the acquisition, I got to meet with a lot of people at Microsoft and to visit a few times. And I'm what this happened was the people are incredible. And, everybody kind of understood what we were trying to do. Satya Nadella had just come in, taking over from Steve Ballmer, and the culture had already changed, but also seeing a company where the culture was just actively transitioning from this old guard to this new guard was really interesting to me. And the chance to have, be a part of that was really exciting. So obviously it happened, but I'm still at Microsoft today. I love being there. But that was certainly a good move, both for the company and for me personally.
Yeah, and I think it's always I have lived a professional life in VC funded startups. There's always the hope that there's an acquisition or an exit. And you bring up an interesting point, going from such a small company to being acquired by a large behemoth. Like that's a cultural change, and some people love it and some people thrive and some people are hesitant
Mhm.
and it works out and some people decide to leave. What a nice little, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's right on your line of neutrality. So I kind
I
of
mean,
love that.
and another one in Charlie, because I mean, it wasn't all, that wasn't puppies, when you
No.
big company like that. It's, again, culture shock. Um,
Yeah.
Moving from a startup, with 200 people where you know exactly who to go to when you have a
Mhm.
question or you need something done or whatever. Like moving to a big
You know the
company like
CEO,
Microsoft,
you know the
like moving into a
founders.
new city, like, the people around you, but trying to figure out, like, how to get anything new or unexpected done or who needs to approve it or, that's taken me literal years to figure out. And, I think it's even only took me probably 6 or 7 years before I got comfortable thinking, in most cases, I kind of know what to do when something
Yeah.
falls my way, but that took a long time to figure out.
Wow. Like I talk about onboarding being 6 months, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, truly those large corporate, those large companies, it's so
Yeah.
much to navigate and
Mhm.
learn. Beautiful. Anything else you want to touch about on your career at Microsoft before we talk about some more personal things on your journey line?
I don't know. I mean, just on the career of Microsoft, I mean, it's just been exciting being at a place that's gone through so much change. I mentioned the cultural change already, and that was, just been really interesting to see this transition from a company that kind of thought, everything has to be the Microsoft way, and we set the standards to more of a company that's about, let's actually listen to what people want and go to where they are and do the things that they want to do. And kind of being part of that, seeing some of the old guard at Microsoft that was still set in the old ways of our way, it's our way of the highway, and having some heated arguments with those kinds of people from time to time, and not a Microsoft anymore. I still am, so some stuff. Yeah,
It's like a little hair
exactly.
toss for you.
Yeah, that's right. And also it's just the whole AI transition. And again, I've been lucky to be part of, a couple of big transitions, that transition to big data, that transition to data science, and now the transition to AI, and just seeing how nimbly a company of that size can, on a dime, just transition to saying, this is our focus now. We're going to make this happen. And Well, I did frustrations. I think from Microsoft in the early years was just the rate of change. You had to start, you can do things in a couple of months. Idea or a product and have it out there. And that
Yeah.
was never the way until a couple of years ago.
Big ships can be hard to turn.
Yeah, exactly. But Microsoft being able to go from idea to a product in people's hands in the space of very short space of time. I never thought I would see it. Now I see it routine.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Well, we'll continue on the journey line. We hit the lowest point where Jay passed away. I'll let you take it.
Yeah. This is a tough one. So Jay and I were married for 16 years, I think 17 years. And we had just moved back to California. And just one day at the doctor's office, he fainted. He just got to the doctor's office because he had cold or something. But they've been to the hospital because he fainted. After some blood tests, they diagnosed him with leukemia. And so number one, that was terribly, that first period was just a terribly difficult time for both of us because, it was a huge shock. Jane was at the peak of his career. He just been named CEO of a PR company. We just moved to California to be closer to his clients. And suddenly it was just like, oh no, what the hell?
Yeah.
And especially at a time when we didn't know what kind of cancer it was, and is there any treatment or what are the prospects, and it was a good 6 months to figure all that out. But it turned out that he had a kind of leukemia that there was some drugs for, and the prognosis seemed pretty good. As the doctors said, he would probably die at old age before he dies of this particular kind of cancer. So we, it was definitely the big one, the drugs, and we had supplies of masks well before COVID broke out, and all that kind of stuff. But then a few years after that, so the first drug he was on stopped working, and I had to transition to a new type of drug, and that worked for a while, and then it was just complication after complication after complication until eventually he just got really sick one day, took him to the hospital. They had to take him down to San Francisco, and I blocked a lot of it out now, but it was just this, all happened very suddenly. We were just having our lives, everything was good, and then in the space of just about 3 weeks, it just all went to hell really, really quickly. The last 10 days or so was because he had a surgery, in the ICU, bleeding that wasn't expected, and he never woke up from that again. But we kind of, for a few days, it was just it was just taking a long time to recover from the anesthesia, and then it was always he's going to come out, but it's we were never sure about whether he could hear us when we talked, or if he could feel anything, or if you think he just didn't know. And that was the hardest part, just not knowing what he was going through that whole process. So, and then he passed away.
What can we, me, listeners, whoever, what can we do to best honor Jay's memory?
And that's a really good question. Be kind to others, I think. I think that was the thing that Jay excelled the most at, was caring for people and having empathy. He helped me a lot with that, I'm a cold clinical person, but Jay kind of helped me understand that, you need to have empathy to be successful with everything else.
It's all about balance in the relationship,
exactly.
And y'all found it. I was fortunate enough to meet Jay. Huge fan. Will always be.
Yeah.
would love to honor his memory in that way. Whew, whew. Not to cut it too short, but I do want to move on to this little high point.
Mhm.
Cute pup, man after my own heart, Dawson. How are what's happening now these days with you and Dawson?
I mean, Dog Dawson is incredible. Just after Jay died, my mom came back from Australia. It's a healthy house. I was very, very depressed. I didn't think, I never understood. I don't think you probably can understand, but grief really, really fucks you up. To the point of, I literally can't think. I literally can't get out of bed in the morning. Couldn't fend my, I couldn't eat. No, couldn't feed
I
myself.
believe it. I believe it.
I had a mum thing over to help me out, which was a real godsend. But during that process, she was trying to convince me to get a dog. Jay and I had dogs, and they had actually both died 2 months before Jay did. But anyway, we ended up visiting with a rescue shelter and found. I actually adopted Dawson. Not adopted, I fostered rather Dawson. He was found with his mother in a trash can in Vallejo or something, and they needed a foster family to take care of them. So I said I would take them on both. I fell in love with them both, and Dawson in particular. He was just like a little bundle of black fluff when I got him. Hey, now he's 100 pounds. I had no idea.
Now he's a big bundle of
Yeah, now
black
he's a
fluff.
big one. He's just a great guy. He's my constant companion. He's always like laying at my feet while I walk and sleeps on my bed at night. And it's just knowing that there's somebody here all the time is worth the amounts of treats and really rubs.
Of course, that's why he's a big bundle of joy now with all those treats.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the journey line. I will turn it over to you. Tell the folks where they can find you if they want to find you, or promote what you got going on. Tell the people what's next.
I'm not too much to promote, but you can find me on various places, including Twitter, or whatever it's called, X and GitHub, as Revo David, REVODAVID. I'm not too active on those online things as I used to be, because Twitter's just terrible these days. But so if you want to find me, you DM me there. I still read my DMs. But this has been a real pleasure, Kim. Thank you for putting this together.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time on Journey Lines.